Hello, my name is Marisa Crisocco, and I'm a professor and the head of the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering here at the University of Connecticut. And we're here today to talk about our project that is called Include, and more importantly, about our vision on how to create a more inclusive environment for neurodivergent people in higher education. I'm going to provide it, of course, more our perspective on the US system, but I think that the ideas that we're going to talk about are really universal. And this is going to be more like a conversation style presentation. And I'm here with my colleague Arash Zaghi, who is really the pioneer here at UConn. So Arash, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started doing this work here at UConn?
Sure. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm Arash Zaghi. I'm a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. My background is by training structural engineering, but after my own diagnosis with ADHD, I started doing research in the area of engineering education, focusing on making education system more inclusive for neurodiverse learners. I have first-hand experience with ADHD and dyslexia, and I hope that helps this conversation today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So how about we start by a brief introduction of the program and what it is about, what its components are, and also your role.
Sure. So when I became department head in 2019 and you joined my administrative team, we had an opportunity to go after a program called Revolutionizing Engineering Departments that is sponsored by the National Science Foundation. And the idea behind that program is that you really want to revamp the way that you approach engineering education. And so as we were talking, how to approach this, you kind of like briefed me up on the work that you were doing. And I immediately saw that neurodiversity and really embracing that in the context of education is the next frontier in terms of inclusivity. And it's something that if we don't embrace, we will really be doing a disservice to ourselves. And so we embarked on a journey to create a multifaceted program that embraces students from the very beginning, like recruits them, and with the idea that they can thrive within higher education and within engineering education to bring their most creative selves. And then when they're here, they can express themselves and learn in the way that best fits with each, cognitive with the best cognitive function and the best brain function. And so our program has, as I said, it has multiple facets. So it has one facet that looks at how we teach and make sure that the way that we teach, especially in our large classes, is really versatile and inclusive in terms of different types of learners. But it also has aspects in terms of faculty training, mentoring students, and really increasing awareness on what is neurodiversity and what is very important and why is it so important for engineering and for society in general.
Yeah, thank you. I need to take this opportunity to thank you, honestly. I appreciate that you got on board so quickly, and I see it's been a difficult project to run because of the nature of it. I mean, we are very comfortable to run research projects that they are related to our technical training, but this one I observed you had to work with a multidisciplinary team. You had to navigate through the administrative structure to be able to make things happen. And I thank you for all the hard work and determination. And I'm very optimistic. I mean, like this thing, if it wants to get to a point that we can really make change, it needs more people like you on board. I'm very happy.
Well, don't thank me. I'll thank you, Arash, because you brought this, you brought this very important issue, at a time, to me, at a time when I was really looking for a platform for change in education, because I believe that higher education overall, I mean, I've spent some time in Europe and things are not very, very different there, but also in the United States, I think that we have some fundamental and structural problems in how we approach that. We have very much like a cookie cutter type of approach, especially in large institutions. And, when you talked to me about neurodiversity, I immediately saw that this particular lens can really help us make much needed structural changes on moving away from that uniform
Yeah.
kind of system that turns people in and out, but really look at how we can cultivate individual creativity to to build a better future, really,
Yeah,
for
that's true.
society.
Thank you. So let me ask you this question. I never asked you this question. When you started the project, when you wrote the proposal, let's go back to the time you wrote the proposal. You had some ideas, right? In terms of how difficult the change is going to be, how much resistance you're going to get, or what the experiences, what the actual experiences of students. I mean, you had some experience as an educator. We talked, and like, but your experience was limited mainly to that. But through that, you got to talk to many students. So, what was in the past 2.5, 3 years? What are the main things that you realized and it was not evident to you when you wrote the proposal?
Yes, that's a great question, and it's one that we're still kind of like in the middle of the project. We're almost 3 years in, and we have another two, and so my perceptions and my experiences are still kind of like evolving. But from the kind of like experiential, like anecdotal information that I have collected over time, it's clear to me how the number one factor for student success is that sense of belonging, that sense of like seeing yourself represented and seeing yourself valued for who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And of course, it's important that we redesign our courses, that we bring universal design for learning, and we provide students with choice in assessment and things like that. But even more than that is to really, reach out to the students and say, you are valued, and what you bring to the table, is going to make us all better. And I'm really hoping that our research data can really kind of like come and show this on a wider scale, so we can kind of like bring this message to more people.
And I promise you, just putting that conversation on the forefront, it helps a lot, because my experience was that I internalized all the challenges that I had when I was a student, both undergrad or even K-12. I mean, during my pre-college education. I mean, whatever happened, that I had challenges, bad grades, I failed to meet the expectations. Particularly, most of my challenges were related to meeting deadlines and writing assignments. I internalized them. I knew that, okay, there is only one person to be blamed here, and it's only me, because look at the past record of me. I mean, like always, I've had this issue, and it's me. It's part of me. It's defined me, and that sense of belonging that you mentioned. When I look back, it was missing. Honestly, I survived. I struggled through, but it was missing. I never assumed that I'm natural. I mean, this I belong to this environment, because I was being reminded pretty frequently that here's another case that you cannot stay on top of it, or here's another thing that you're struggling with. Here's another thing that you see all the colleagues that are taking notes quickly. I mean, submitting their feedback, and then you have to clear up your calendar for 3 hours to be able to write up like a one pager. I mean, like, those are the reminders. I mean, those imply that probably you lack the skills that are needed to succeed in this environment. And for that reason, having this conversation, having just saying that, telling the students that you belong. I mean, like, you're here for something else. I mean, you're here because your problem solving skills, your analytical skills. Writing is good. It's going to be an extra thing that if you're good at it. But unfortunately, I think in engineering, my experience is related to engineering. For some reason, there seems to be some unreasonable level of emphasis on writing skills and assignments. what do you think the root of the problem is? I mean, like, and I don't know how comfortable you are talking about challenging the education system from inside. So,
Well, I mean, I think that writing has always been fundamental to schooling, to any type of schooling.
yeah,
So I don't know that this is specific to engineering. I think that it's like tied to the
yeah,
education system overall. And if you will, it's also tied to, how society functions. And at the point where we went beyond the hunter-gatherer society and the numbers of people kind of like increased, and especially now in globalization, the main means to communicate, far away amongst like multiple people did become writing, right? Because it's only been very recently that other forms of
yeah.
immediate communication amongst like large numbers of people were invented. And so I think that it's very much a function of how society is that we did this. And I'm very curious to see, and I'd like to hear your opinion about how technology can change education and this and writing as a main form of communication, and how neurodiverse individuals are going to be influenced by that.
So I promise you an answer to that, but let's stay there a little. Uh, at some point, books and archiving knowledge through written records was the only way of maintaining or passing along knowledge. That's understandable. I get that to that point, but like the society has moved on now. Most of the knowledge is on the digital format. I mean, so it's in written form, but like we have moved past that reading and the intense like skill development around reading and writing. Why do you think academia hasn't changed its mindset? I mean, like, I just want to probe it a little more, and then I will go back to the technology thing.
Because academia is a fundamentally conservative type of institution, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what this is, what is behind it. Has traditionally be a conservative institution, and I think that we always lag behind, like in societal changes. Part of what motivates me in the Include project and also in the other work that we are doing is that I believe that, if higher education is to survive and even beyond that to thrive, we have to change our approach to things.
Yeah.
And writing could be one part of that, but it has to be overall, the way that we think about teaching people, about innovation, about how we how just we approach the whole thing fundamentally, that this format of like classroom exams,
Yeah.
grades, and so on is being rejected, and it's not where innovation is happening. It's happening in the companies right now. It's happening out in the real world. And I think that if we want to stay relevant, we need to catch up to that.
Yeah.
and bring that type of thinking and those technologies into our toolbox.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, you see, I mean, like that, a lot of, particularly in the area of like artificial intelligence, for example, that I want to talk about actually. Most of it is happening outside academia. Most of the cool stories are coming from companies these days. And going back to your question, where I think technology can support this and join forces, and we can join forces and like push this movement forward. At Okay, so let talk about a new project that I have. It's through National Science Foundation, and we are looking at the possibility of using artificial intelligence, high-end NLP models, pre-trained models, very large models that they have a lot of capacity in terms of mimicking human language.
What is NLP, Arash?
And natural language processing
Natural
models.
language processing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To see if we can meaningfully support those that they have challenges. And dyslexia is the focus of that project, but I've realized that some neurodiverse individuals, like those with autism, they have challenges with certain types of text. So interaction with text is a problem universally, and I mean, like, it's not something that, for example, is unique to neurodiversity. If you think about that, I mean, like, you have read some paragraphs that it's difficult to just get through. I mean, like, you have to read it multiple times, or sometimes you skip, and there are paragraphs or texts that are super engaging. I mean, like, you lose track of time. You find yourself in the fifth page, like, and you're reading, and so it is something that um, interaction with text is quite personalized, and each one of us, we prefer one type over another one, and with dyslexia, I mean, it gets to a point that you cannot extract the information that you need from the text if the text doesn't have the right format, style, presentation. And then that puts you behind. It puts you at disadvantage if you think about that. For example, if I assign reading assignments to my class, and then I have a quiz, follow-up quiz, testing them on the knowledge that acquired by the reading. If there is a dyslexic student and they had struggles fundamentally just going through the text, then that was the problem, not understanding, absorbing the technical information, critical thinking around that. So through that project, we are seeing if we can personalize text, uh, given your profile, so you interact with the system and it understands your style, and then it's powerful enough to be able to manipulate the text, uh, rewrite it in a way that it is more conducive to your understanding and learning. Or even we can go as far as like extracting the information in a way that is like more direct approach, rather than you needing to go through the entire text. So it's very exciting when you think about that, because it without artificial intelligence, it's not going to be able to we're not going to be able to do that, because we need an army of editors that they need to sit and like change the text, and like it's impossible. But on demand artificial intelligence can do that for us. So we are looking at that, and that's where I see that technology can help us. And you have seen, for example, like some of that now we are used to it in like Microsoft Word. Now spelling was a major thing.
Right, right,
You
yes.
couldn't misspell things when you
Yes.
were working on
Yes.
typewriters, right? This one, you don't care about that at all. So have we adjusted the expectations? I mean, like in our elementary education, like we are putting less emphasis on spelling. I don't know. I mean, like, or it's like 50 years ago. Probably we have moderated the the expectations, but things like that. I mean, soon I think that technology, I think, is going to be able to really support neurodiverse learners to a good extent. But at the same time, I think a cultural shift needs to happen. Honestly, it is something that is long overdue, that we start thinking, given that we have so many, like this podcast style, conversation style presentation that we chose. We could go with the PowerPoint, right? We could do that many other ways, but we took that risk today. I mean, we don't know how it's going to be received, but we have many options now to communicate something, and I think our system needs to catch up, honestly. So I want to also ask you about the importance of the power dynamic in academia, how professors or teachers think about what is expected of a good engineer, what makes a good engineer, what makes you deserving of being in academia. And it has to do with that sense of belonging at the end. But like, how do you think that contributes to the problem?
Well, I mean, I will start first by saying, that there is an issue of representation and how you got to be, a professor in the first place, right? So you went through yourself through a system that self-selected people, that are able to kind of like jump over, go over that huge hump of writing and reading and, focusing on one particular skill set to become a professor. So a lot of people who make it through the system do not have any experience on what it feels like, to experience those difficulties. So that is one portion. And then the other one is that we do tend to prize the same things that we accomplished, right?
Absolutely.
So, if we accomplished to write a 400-page dissertation, then we think, that is the prize
Standard,
the standard that everyone else has to meet. And so, it's not necessarily bad intentions. It's just like how the system works, that the system kind of like self-reproduces in a certain way. And this is, I think, why an important message of what we want to, to bring along today is that, don't be scared by the hump. We're trying to lower the hump, and we need more neurodiverse people in academia to be changing the paradigm, to be changing the culture, to be having these conversations, and bringing in these alternatives on a daily basis.
So do you think it's a bottom up revolution, or we have to make sure the higher up in the administration or those that they are in a decision making position, they need to first adopt this mindset and then things will fall in place? And what do you think, which approach do you think is more effective?
It has to be both ways. And why do I say that? Like, for example, we got like an opportunity to have 5 years and $2 million from the National Science Foundation to be doing this work. So we got that because there were certain people fairly high up and in power who made that choice, that this was a resource that they gave us. And so it's because we would want to do this anyway, but we would have to do a million other things. So the fact that they gave us the space, time, and resources to do this is very much enabling change. On the other hand, the big push for change comes from the younger people from bottom up who are like hungry for this change, frankly. And, the younger people and the people who are not in power are generally not going to be represented up there, right? In the higher administration. So because you need both, a hunger and an impetus for change, but also the ability to get some resources to make it happen, I think it has to be like a sandwich approach, so to speak.
So your experiences when it comes to now new faculty hires, when you are in committees that they need to choose the next person that is going to fill that position or this position, it doesn't need to be necessarily faculty hires. How did this involvement change your mind? And when you go to these committees, when you listen to the conversations, when you're reviewing the portfolios, how do you incorporate this knowledge that now you have?
That's a good question. I want to say that part of, it's too early for me to say that I am able or I have seen, like a lot of active change. But the changes that I do see, at the faculty level is, for example, that I am able to have a lot more conversations with faculty who will openly identify as neurodiverse to me, because they know that, that not I only accept, but I support and champion that. And so, they know that, when they come to me and we have this conversation, I will, be a champion in them doing this
and
work.
Celebrate it.
Right? Yes, exactly. So I think that for now, at this stage, what I'm able to do is just, open the door for more people to come in and be part of the narrative and part of the work that's being done. And then hopefully, being in administration, one can slowly, make more structural changes to the reward system, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
the recruitment, retention, and reward system. That's what matters at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. So my again, like, because a lot of my struggles in the past, they have been related to my dyslexia throughout my education. I clearly remember the time that for our final exams, and being a procrastinator, I mean, I waited always to the exam night to study, and there were topics that I studied half an hour and went to the exam no problem. And I remember everything, we had to cancel everything family wide for me when I had some writing project or some like writing assignment because and it was tense and it was not fun. It was, again, my mom had expectations and we knew there's a problem there, and I'm particularly sensitive when it comes to um, expecting students to present their knowledge, their learning through some uh, writing work. And I ask myself, is it necessary? I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean, like, write a one-page thing describing thing. Last night, for example, there was my daughter's, she's in seventh grade, a middle school open house, and teachers came and they very pleasant people. They talked about what their approach is, and two of them that they uh, had to work on the science related topics. They both put most of the emphasis on science writing. First of all, what's science writing? I was sitting there as an engineer with a PhD, and I was asking, what is science writing? I mean, writing, it's about a scientific topic, can be a very small component of that if you want to publish. But like, most of the science is the exploration mindset, how you look at the data, how you test the hypothesis. And it was just science writing. Okay, so like, how would that appear to, how science would appear to someone with dyslexia then? And it's interesting that when they were talking about language art, there was no creative writing, any talk about creative writing. Probably it's understood or known, but like, a very explicit, clear emphasis last night on science writing.
But Arash,
Surprising.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, writing is difficult for you, and the emphasis on writing in education, is a challenge. And yet you chose a profession that is all about writing. So what attracted you to this, and how do you work through it?
It was a balance of pain and gain. The gain from the joy of exploration and interacting with students, thirsty of knowledge, and that has been more than the pain of. So will that stay the same? I don't know.
I hope so.
But I think the balance has always been positive. But someone else may not have that strong gain on the exploration side, and yet has some difficulty on the challenges, and and they do not pursue, and we're losing talents just because of that. And so, and I have a thickest skin, I can say. I mean, like, so and when I talk to students, I remind them that I'm not talking to them from the point of view of a person who made it. I try to spend enough time acknowledging my challenges, because it it I don't think it's a fair picture for them to think that, oh, I had some superpowers, that I was able to survive this and they lack this. That's why I want to I make sure when I talk to them that they know that I had serious struggles. I had moments that I was very anxious, that I was frozen, that I hid under a blanket. So otherwise they may think that like, oh, maybe my challenges were not that bad, that's why I was able to make it. I mean, maybe the question that you had, I mean, like, I had, that gave me the opportunity to clarify that. No, it was intense, but the balance of pain and gain, I think, was the positive, and that encouraged me to pursue this.
Thankfully for us.
Yes, and that and that now that I'm involved in this, I'm more motivated. This is the best, that could happen to my professional career. So should we wrap it up by saying a little bit about what this is going, the next 2 years of the project, what you're looking at, and any broad long-term vision that you may have for this involvement?
So for me, my immediate goal for the 2 years is to make sure that we have a sustained culture change, that we have an environment where every new faculty member that comes in, every new staff member, every new student still is part of a similar ecosystem that continues to prize neurodiversity, and as even though there is no include project that spends money, right? So this sustained culture change is what I want to achieve. And so this is the immediate 2-year project. And then beyond that, we have to scale up, right? I mean, we are one engineering department in one university from like thousands of universities in the, hundreds of universities in the US, thousands of universities in the world. And so how do you create ripple effects and you have these discussions outwards? I mean, this is what we're working towards, right? And this is why we're doing
And I
the
love
podcast
that, like,
today.
those that they may listen to this, they connect with us if they have ideas how we can join forces and work together. I think it's very helpful that multiple institutions from multiple countries, they are talking about this rather than an isolated department in one institution, because that can be easily ignored by the broader academic community. So I really hope that this becomes the starting point for a longer term conversation with collaborators that we may not know now, but hopefully through this podcast we get to connect with them, and hopefully we can join forces for the scale up of the effort. Want to add anything else?
Just the last thing, that while we're doing this, another part that is very important to me is touching individual students, because large scale efforts may or may not be successful, but in the touching people's lives in the meantime, even if it's 5 or 10 or 20 or 50, it's something that we have the opportunity to do, and we can celebrate and prize that every day.
That's very important.
Yes,
very important. That's very true, and that definitely gives me energy when I see that. Oh, yes, we are looking at this like 10-15 year ahead of us, but there is an opportunity for us today to help someone.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you very much, Marisa.
Thank you,
for all
Arash.
you're doing.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
you too.
Bye.